6, 5. Why is he counting? Because it's a live show. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, guess what? People of the World, episode 169 of Marketing as a Foreign Language. I am your host. I am thrilled to have our good friend Susan Lindner back on the program. She was a trendsetter last episode because she didn't start with her own incarnation. No. She went back even further. She went all the way back to this incredible story that I have told now multiple people about how I want to say her father, not grandfather. Could be wrong about that. We'll get Susan's take on it. Fled Germany because of an interaction he had with, I want to say, a Nazi official. Susan will correct me if I'm incorrect on that assumption. We talked about a number of things. Talked about Buddhism, a farming village in Poland. Did you know that bucolic means pleasant? I know that now thanks to Susan Lindner. Went to high school, won the Polyglot Award, speaks a number of languages, incluyendo el español. Si hablas español, me entiendes ahorita. Si no, no me entiendes. Dickinson College was on her resume. Studied abroad, was going to go to Tanzania, ended up in Costa Rica, should say. Drink tea, it's good for you. It doesn't have to be green tea. Green tea is not Susan's favorite tea. We might cover that today. And last but not least, I do not believe in coincidences, and it is no coincidence that we are joined now by the incredible Susan Lindner.
Jazz hands.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, those are my favorite hands.
Out of all the hands, jazz hands.
Of all the hand options. Okay, so backstage we had a couple of good conversations about what exactly it is that you do. So we're going to go back to your time in Costa Rica, but before we do, I want you to tell the fine folks what the heck innovation marketing is and what the heck what that means. I was just very confused. Give us the rundown.
Sure. So my agency, Emerging Media, is an innovation communications consultancy. And basically, we work with chief innovation officers, heads of innovation, product managers, and product marketers to help them better tell their stories. So most innovators are great at innovating, not so good at talking about their innovations. And so I train them in storytelling to use their science, not to lose the science, to get the resources, runway, and recognition they deserve. So how to move an innovation through a giant Fortune 500 company requires great storytelling to get other people on board and to get the resources you need to get that innovation to market. And that's what we help them do. We turn scientists and great innovators into phenomenal storytellers to get what they need.
Yeah, that is fascinating to me. Lillian in chat says hi.
Hi.
So, all right. So how does one become a very niche, some people say niche, I don't know what the right word is, consultant for Fortune 500s in this particular innovation space? We're going to find out. And we're going to go back to Costa Rica. So there you are. You're going to Washington, D.C. a lot because you have signs and you have markers. And you're letting the world know what you think. Changing the world. Then what happens?
So I went to Costa Rica. I studied abroad there. And part of my desire in studying at the Universidad de Costa Rica was to explore my left-wing political leanings and to support the Sandinistas. There was a war going on in Nicaragua at the time, and I wanted to get to the front lines and help out my compañeros, my fellow brothers and sisters who are in la lucha, in the fight for their lives to save their country.
Whoa.
So I hitchhiked from Costa Rica to Nicaragua and got to the front lines and realized war does not look as fun or romantic on CNN as it does in person.
Whoa.
And the devastation was mind-blowing. So decided to opt out of war. Changed a lot about my perspective on life, about what I thought about war in general.
Well, we got to hit the pause button. This is just so much to unpack here. So okay. So Sandinistas were the freedom fighters in Nicaragua in the 80s and 90s who were trying to overthrow the regime that was basically a dictator supported by many Western governments. And
to keep the population in line. And 90% of the population couldn't read and support themselves. They were living in a plantation economy, and they were fighting for their lives. And so that was the goal, was to create a more just society. And I wanted to be a part of that.
I love that. So help me understand Costa Rica to Nicaragua, though. So you went to Costa Rica, but you ended up in Nicaragua?
So I was studying at the University of Costa Rica. I was
Right.
an anthropology and liberation theology student. And then fall break came after Christmas.
Okay.
And I stood on the highway with two girlfriends on the Pan American Highway, and we hitchhiked our way to Nicaragua.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. Got it. Sorry, a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
What's
sorry about
liberation? No, don't apologize. What's liberation theology?
So liberation theology is it's a look at Christianity that started in the 70s in South America and Chile, actually.
Huh.
And it was an understanding of the Bible through what's called praxis. How do we understand the words of Jesus as a human being on the earth? And what was he trying to tell us? And how do we put it into practice every day? And at that time, lots of left-leaning movements like socialism and communism were hitting South and Central America. And so it was a way of looking at Jesus through the lens of serving poor people and understanding what are the rights and the place in Christian theology of the poor. And so when you look at Jesus as a poor carpenter, but also the guy who overturned the tables of the money changers outside of the temple, you understood him as an economic revolutionary who was seeking to upend the economic and political structures of the day. And so social movements started to adopt liberation theology as part of liberating political movements, as the spiritual underpinning of those movements, of seeing Jesus as a revolutionary first.
I understand completely. So you take that spirit, if you will, and you use it to gain confidence, to basically hitchhike to Nicaragua, which, by the way, is very unsafe.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Right?
it is.
War-torn Nicaragua. Okay. This is one of those things where as a parent, if my daughter was like, I'm going to go hitchhike Nicaragua, I'm like, no, I'd be terrified. Now, if I'm personally doing it, fine. That's different. But
Would you?
As a parent, and no, there's a huge difference between what
Helen, would you do it?
So let me tell you this. So I barefoot longboard, and I was barefoot longboarding the other day, and there was an altercation in my neighborhood. And it was F-bombs and these people like losing their minds. And this is my personality. I like longboard past it, and I scooch on right back and dirt right on over. And I just hunker down, and I'm like, because I'm there to make the peace. You know, I don't say anything, but they are going at each other, like holding each other back. It's some neighbor dispute. So yes, I tend to gravitate towards those sorts of things if I feel that I can, make an impact, that sort of thing. So that's why I'm so attracted to this sort of environment. I like the pressure. I like the stress. I like the, this thing. Oh, we got someone from Twitch. Cam Cyber. I also do peace control. Shout out to you, Cam Cyber. Thanks for swinging on by.
You definitely need it on Twitch, especially.
Dude,
Someone's got to play peace control.
There is something on Twitch. But anyway, shout out to Cam Cyber. I'm glad Twitch chat is finally working. It's finally working. Okay. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know if I were there at that time. If I was you, I would do it, because we know that you did it, right? At that place and at that time. But anyway, so I love this. This is so interesting to me, because you take your story of liberation theology, and to me, doing the consulting that it takes to navigate through a Fortune 500 to get that idea to manifest is kind of like a little revolution. You're staging a little revolution in a company for this behemoth and all the powers that be to finally wake up. Hello, there's this thing here. It's bigger than you think. It's not some stupid idea. It's going to change everything. You're going to get on board. Let's go. So I'm seeing parallels.
I mean, I was just interviewing someone for my podcast, a guy named Tanyahi Vicky, and it just wrote a book called Pirates in the Navy. And as an innovator in a large company, you can't just go totally rogue. You're effectively a scripted pirate in the Navy, and you got to figure out how to navigate all of those different channels in order to move your innovation forward, even through guys who are stuck in my quarterly earnings, my regular P&L. I don't want to take risks. I'm looking at my vacation and my retirement. How do we get those people to move?
Oh, yeah, because these are the decision makers. 58 years old, rich. It's fine. They go to work because, they spent their whole life getting to this position. They're comfortable.
Don't
it's
rock
like,
the boat.
Yeah, like it's fine. Everything's fine. But those people also can take the biggest risks because they're rich. They're fine. The Fortune 500 top execs, come on. It's status at that point. They don't, it's not like they can't just go spend.
Or it's effort.
Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. Sounds like a great idea. Okay, so anyway, the revolutionary. Okay, I'm really starting to get it. Okay, so Nicaragua, you see the brutality of war firsthand, which is something that very few Americans, I would argue, have seen. South American war, but you did. Quick shout out to Cam Cyber. Thank you for the continued comments. There is no progress without a risk. It is true. So talk to us about that, Susan.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really shifted my perspective. I wound up hitchhiking through 4 more countries during that time. Got to the door of El Salvador, but couldn't get in because we didn't have a UN passport. So wound up going up to Guatemala and Honduras and all the way up to the border of Mexico, and then came back. So 50 drivers, no incidents. Very, very lucky.
Wow. You need to take a Duchess. You know about Duchess Rideshare? It's in Vegas right now, but it's coming to a city near you. It's women drivers, women passengers, Uber.
There you go.
Yeah, just take a Duchess. Susan's way safer.
So yeah, I mean, it was, that was way cheaper, by the way. I kept my passport and my credit card in my sneaker in case we were held up.
Wow.
So that was, that was 1990.
Okay.
So that was a while back. Yeah. Different time.
Okay. Well, I love that. So it's clear to me that, I'll put it to you this way. When I play chess, or when you listen to a grandmaster talk about a game of chess, there will be moves in the opening where they'll say, yeah, but down the line. And this is how folks get really strong at chess, is they know 50 moves down the line, that rook there is going to be really important. And so to me, this war, this hitchhiking, this adventurous spirit that you have is the setup for this later success, if that makes sense. These moves that you're making. So I love it. So what happens after this? Did you take a break? Things are crazy. You did this massive adventure of a lifetime. Did you fall in love with anyone down there? Was there any?
I did.
You fell in love in South America.
Yeah, it's Central America. Yeah,
Central America.
I did. A lovely young man who sat next to me in my pre-Columbian art class won my heart.
Yeah.
And he's still making beautiful art today. We're still in touch 30 years later.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. That's great. Yeah, love always plays a vital role in these stories.
It's how we actually learn a language way faster than if we were just in Rosetta Stone. The motivation is never higher in your life if you're dating someone who speaks a foreign language.
Yes, ma'am. Shout out to Mockfully. Hey, you may remember me as Soliloquy. Awesome to see you streaming again. Soliloquy is a very good chess player. So shout out to Mockfully.
Woo-hoo.
So, okay. So there you were in Central America doing the whole thing. What happened after this epic tale wrapped up? What did you do?
Yeah, so I came back. That was my junior year abroad, and I came back to school. And every person that I met while I was hitchhiking around Central America, I asked them what was their favorite country on the planet. And I met people who were travelers, not tourists, people who went around the world with a backpack and a dream, people who would work for a couple of years and then save up a ton of money and then travel around the world on it, come back and work again, travel again. So all the people I met to whom I asked that question answered me with the same answer, which was Thailand. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here eating rice and beans every day when everyone I meet wants to be in Thailand? So I came back to school and I told my advisors, I want to shift my focus from Latin America in my senior year to Southeast Asia. And they're like, you're insane.
They were right. They were correct in that assessment.
But I did. And so I wound up writing my thesis on AIDS, prostitution, and tourism in Thailand.
Dude.
And I got really deep into studying all about how that works. And I came back very left wing. So everything for me was, those North American capitalists are crushing and are destroying these other countries with their values and their oppression and so forth. So I wrote my thesis on that topic, and in particular, a nonprofit organization called the Population and Community Development Association. And I made a promise to myself that I would go and work for that organization because they were helping women who didn't want to be prostitutes anymore to get out of prostitution. And that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So
okay.
For the next 2 years, I wrote to them asking them for a job.
Okay. And time. All right. So Esther writes, it's called learning by pillow talk. Which is so true. That's so funny. And okay, so you decide after being basically like a revolutionary, falling in love in Central and South America vibes, well, just Central America sounds like, to completely change and go to Thailand, but again, not just to enjoy pad Thai, not just to visit the temples and have a little map and walk around as a tourist, but to confront the devastating effects of basically sex work, the institution of sex work in Thailand, which
and the raging HIV epidemic
and the epidemic of HIV that is subsequently right. Okay, okay. I don't know how you do that. You know what I mean? You get off the plane and now you're standing there. How does one combat the HIV pandemic in Thailand?
So, I wound up getting an email from a professor in college who I'd kept in touch with. And she said, hey, do you still want to study Thai? And I said, yeah. She goes, well, they're offering it at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Why don't you quit your New York City job at, the biggest cancer center in New York and give up your apartment and go study Thai for 6 weeks, 10 hours a day. And I was like, that sounds great, but I have no money and a mountain of student loans. And she said, well, ask for a scholarship, stupid. That's how we do it. So I was like, that's how academia works. So I did, and I got it. Wow. And so I studied at the University of Madison. And one day I'm sitting in the cafeteria eating a cheese sandwich, as one does in Wisconsin.
Correct.
And this woman sits down at my table and says, what language are you studying? And I said, Thai. She said, why? And I said, I want to go work for the Population and Community Development Association. She said, I was a Rhodes Scholar there. I can help you with that. And I said, I've been writing letters for 2 years. She said, well, they moved. It's going to take another 2 years for the mail to catch up. So we wrote a letter in the computer center because no one had their own computer back then, in the computer center to the chairman of the organization. And 6 weeks later, I was in Thailand.
Okay. So if anyone's wondering how or why Susan Lindner has such a niche career, because it really is. It's a very unique thing that you do. It's almost so unique that I needed 3 or 4 passes to even understand, and I still don't understand it, which is consulting for some of the most powerful organizations on the planet, how to take an idea within that very organization and manifest it in such a way that it revolutionizes that business. So we're talking NDAs, we're talking a lot of closed door meetings, we're talking getting buy-in. It's basically, what's the word I'm looking for in politics? Where outside forces will come in and they'll like talk to the politicians and try to get them to behave in certain ways. Lobbying. It almost feels like lobbying in a way. I could be like totally wrong. You're like, I can't, it's not even close. Which is probably what you'll say.
Let me help. So a lot of scientists will come in and talk about a radical new idea that they have. And the first slide they'll show you is a chemical formula. Or they'll show you a group of electrons that are bouncing around. And you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about because you're a business leader. You're a marketing leader. You're the person who has to roll it out in China or in Zimbabwe or where have you. And it's the byproduct of, and for some of your listeners, if you were a science person in college, you stayed on the science side of campus. And it's rare that people who are in technical fields ever wander over into their English classes, marketing, communication, journalism, any of that side of campus. Because in the science buildings, you're taught, talk about what's empirically true. Don't get into any of the fluff. Don't get into any of the stuff that veers away from the pure science. And so you're actually penalized for talking about things in a way that humans, i.e. non-expert scientists, understand. So when I go to Corning Glass and I talk to PhDs in fractology, I did not know what a fractologist was when I got to Corning, but fractology is a science of breaking things. Very important in a glass company.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to know whether or not your head's going to go through the windshield, whether or not the glass is going to bend, or at what angle the glass breaks so that the windshield can pop out. But when a fractologist starts talking to you at the electron level of the glass, you've lost all the rest of us.
That's right.
So my job is to help them tell the stories so that the rest of us can understand it without losing the awesomeness that is the science.
You know, I was part of a group called Entrepreneurs Assembly for many years, and we were working with the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, University of Nevada, Urbino, to take science to market. So we were looking for the most marketable scientific achievements that they had to attempt to commercialize it. And so I have played in that space a bit, where you get these scientific papers that are completely unintelligibly complex and difficult to understand, and then you're just translating them. So basically, it's a translation job.
It is. I am like a tech translator for the rest of us humans who didn't spend the time on that side of campus. And also to the business communities to even understand what the market opportunity is. So being able to translate that and understanding how much science for different audiences.
Right.
Some people get it and some people don't.
So I know that there are certain projects you're working on that you're under NDA. Can you give us an example of something that you could mention? Here was this idea. This is what happened with that idea.
Yeah. So surprisingly, so I'll give this example from Corning Glass. They are working on, and this has just been released, so I can just start talking about it. Who would have thought that putting glass into paint would make it so the paint would become antimicrobial? So why does this matter? So imagine if you could paint a wall in a hospital in a super tropical country where fungus and bacteria grow with regularity on the walls. If you could paint those walls such that they would actually repel disease rather than hold on to disease. Putting tiny micro levels of glass, right? I mean, glass is effectively sand, right? So, but creating it in a way that doesn't affect how the paint goes on the wall, not bumpy, right? But it's at such a small size, those molecules of glass, that they actually wind up repelling fungus, bacteria, and other kinds of pathogens that would wind up being detrimental to patients.
I love it. When I was in Venezuela, one of the things that stood out to me was you would have gorgeous mansions, huge properties, and these big brick walls. And at the top of the brick walls, they would cement broken beer bottles. Right? They would literally, they would just smash them and then cement them to stop thieves from getting over the wall.
That is all over the world. Absolutely.
I never see that. Never see that in the States ever. Never, ever have I ever. But
your HOA might say no to that.
Yeah, they don't like that so much. Shout out to Lillian, who writes, "Antimicrobial paint is such a cool invention with so many useful implications."
Right. So imagine now having this conversation in China. Imagine having it with a state regulator and trying to figure out exactly how much of that science to share. So that's the translation job that we were working on is what exactly do we say to Chinese regulators, and how do we influence people both above and below in the conversation so that we could talk to the government and get people excited on WeChat. So even thinking about the brevity of messages and the fullness of messages, high context, low context conversations, right? So this is some of the stuff that we work on in innovation storytelling, figure out how to turn the volume up or down on the science, the facts, what's really marketable, what's not, how to make claims that are justifiable in a, in a regulatory environment. This is all the stuff that we work on every day.
Okay. So.
And by the way, the secret to marketing this is find the narrowest niche you can on the planet that nobody else wants to be in. And then you get to be the expert in that niche, by the way. Nobody else wants to be in this niche.
Oh, right. Exactly. Like how many, how many Susan Lindners are there?
That's right. That's why I can say I am the innovation storyteller, because frankly, nobody else wants this job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it makes me really happy.
I'm happy for you. So I am a Fortune 500 decision maker. I heard about you from a friend, whatever. Yep. And they told me you did this thing with AntiMicrobial Paint. And I have a sneaking suspicion that my scientists have these sorts of ideas, but I'm not sure. Like maybe they do, maybe they don't. Or maybe they have some they told me about, but there's probably more. Do I hire you? Or does someone else hire you?
So the chief innovation officer, one of the innovation leads, the head of the product or product marketing, those are usually the ways that I come in. So I just finished up a project with General Electric, with GE, and the digital transformation group. So they are, turning a 160-year-old industrial company into a digital company. So what is the story that the digital transformation team needs to tell to the other 300,000 employees in that business to not think about the tech team as just the help desk, just the guys who are deploying cybersecurity, but rather the people who are turning the battleship into like a laser fast speedboat. So helping them craft stories individually as individual executives and for the team is part of the work there. So that's an internal job. That's a process job.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's in the companies are so large that internal marketing is something to consider.
Right.
Wherein with Send It Rising, it's all external. These are companies with 20 employees, 100 employees, 200, but 30,000 employees, 50,000 employees, then you're talking to a city.
300,000 employees.
300,000 employees. Yeah, incredible.
Right.
Okay, so I think we got as far as your professional career is kind of starting. We got to Thailand. So that'll be the jumping off point. So Thailand, you clearly have a social good push. It is interesting to me, as Esther Sass writes, and I would agree with her, what a terrific contribution you're making. You kept the thread going all the way from like Nicaragua and some of the work you were doing there through to Thailand. I'm sure it continues in the space between Thailand and what you're currently doing, which the antimicrobial paint, for example, saves, I don't know how many lives. How many lives is that going to save?
A lot. I mean, that's all the infections that you wind up getting while you're in the hospital.
That's right.
Or something else.
I love it. So
and the healthcare workers, keeping them safe.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to give you the final minute to pitch. Just tell people why they should hire you, who they should introduce you to, etc.
Well, if you, number one, encounter chief innovation officers, heads of product, or product marketers, I'm their gal, especially in really technical and innovative fields. Folks who are trying to disrupt the universe, that's my tribe. The other is when you come across folks who have 60-page slide decks to try to explain a really complex concept, I'd like to get that down to 3. And so that's the other part of my job, is really simplifying conversations with smart brevity that gets a point across quickly and effectively. And more importantly, that it travels through an organization, that it builds momentum as it moves. And that's what I love doing. That's my joy.
Truly exceptional. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Lindner, as Esther writes, enjoyed every minute. Hope you're back soon. I would agree with that. We may be doing panels in the future. Susan may be on one of those panels. Just a little teaser for y'all in the future. If you know anyone looking for internet marketing, you know Send It Rising's where you want to go. SendItRising.com. Susan Lindner, thanks so much for swinging by the program today. We appreciate it. And we will hopefully see you next time.
Thanks so much, Callan. Take care.
Goodbye, everybody. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and